How's it going, everyone? Data here, and welcome back to another analysis video here on the channel, getting into the round that was in the 2022 NHL postseason, the conference semi-finals. Now headed into the conference finals, we know that it will be Colorado and Edmonton in the West, Tampa Bay and New York in the East, but we will recap the series that were between the Avalanche and the Blues, the Flames and the Oilers, the Panthers and the Lightning, and the Hurricanes and the Rangers, as I already put out a couple of preview videos for the conference finals in the West and the East, but I wanted to also do a recap video of the second round with a little bit of touching upon looking forward to these conference finals, without getting into too much detail. So without further ado, let's hop straight into it. My original predictions for these 4 rounds, obviously my bracket was a bit busted, but my prediction in round number 2 was Avalanche over the Blues in 6, which came true. Oilers over the Flames in 7 ended up being in 5. Lightning over the Panthers in 7 ended up being in 4, and I had Hurricanes over the Rangers in 6, I believe, ended up being Rangers in 7. So I went 3 for 4 on the predictions and only 1 for 4 on the games played. But that's tough. The games, at least I went 3 for 4 on the teams, all right? So starting off with the Western Conference, let's go first to the Avalanche and the Blues. In this series, we had pretty much I want to say a majority of dominance for the Avalanche when it came to expected goals for. In games 1, 4, and 6, it was pretty much a runaway, and in game 3, it was very even. Game 5, it was definitely majority. It was only really games 2 and, yeah, game 2, a little bit in game 3 that the Blues really had the expected goals for. Now, in that series, it was that game 2 that the Blues won 4-1. Their only other game came in only other win, came in game 5, which was a 5-4 overtime win. And in that series, game 5, we said, looking at the goaltenders, I have a lot of graphics here. Game 5, even in that game, the Blues allowed 1.4 more goals above expected. So going back to the main graphic I had here, I have a lot of images ready to go for today. I think the Avalanche really dominated when it came to the 5-on-5 expected goals for, when it came to play on 5-on-5 and all that. Only a couple games went to overtime. Most games were decided by a couple goals or more, 4-1, 5-2, 6-3. It was only the 3-2 overtime, 5-4 overtime, and then of course the 3-2, which was kind of like an overtime with Darren Helm scoring so late. Even though they were tighter games, they were more leaning towards the Avalanche in terms of their share of the action. So starting off with the Avalanche, like we were saying, I'll go to the losing team first, I suppose. The St. Louis Blues put up a fight for sure. They did a lot more than many people thought. Jordan Binnington being out when Kadri bumped into him, I don't think it was a dirty play. It's kind of it's a player with a bad reputation getting in a bad situation, which has people up in arms. I'm not here to debate that. There's a lot of different ways you could think about it. But just getting straight to the point, I would not classify it as a, quote, dirty play. Is it a questionable play, maybe? Is it, depends on how you define dirty, right? So that being said, Binnington was the difference maker. He was in Stanley Cup mode, .949 save percentage, 1.72 goals against average. When Ville Husso came in, he did well. As I showed in the graphic here, he wasn't allowing like crazy numbers above expected. It wasn't allowing crazy goals above expected. It was really from game 3 to 4 where 2.2 goals above expected were allowed, and then game 5 to 6 was good, bounced back a little bit, but it still remained in the negatives. In games 1 and 2, where we were in the positives, and that series was 1-1 through 2 games, that's where we said, oh boy, we have a series on our hands. It was after that that things started to change a little bit. Binnington, game 1, 51 shots on Binnington. Josh Manson got that close victory. Game 2, Binnington stops 30 shots. But in game 3, I believe that was the one that Binnington got injured in, or it was game 2, but regardless, by game 4, yeah, I believe it was game 3 that got injured, and then by game 4, Kadri scores that hat trick. So that's really what started to change into games 3, 4, 5, and 6. It was Ville Husso. He still didn't do horrible, but it wasn't enough for the Blues. Now, you can't just look at the goaltending. Let's look at the other stats that we were thinking about when we look at these microstat game scores. You're dealing with McKinnon, Kadri, Rantanen, Landeskog, and Nichushkin, the 5 best players in this series being on the Avalanche. Ryan O'Reilly played great, then Artturi Lehkonen, so 6 of the top 7 all on the Avalanche. Now, would you say that the middle group was better? Like, there's also the bottom 4 out of 6 are the Avalanche as well. So it's really high highs and low lows, I suppose, but the Blues are maybe a bit more consistently in the middle. But if your best player's at a 6.3 while the top 3 are at 10.8, 9.5, and 7.6, when we're talking about offense, zone entries, forecheck, exits, special teams, those are the things that are coming together for this microstat game score. If you don't want to think about all that, no problem. You can just think about the skaters as well. I don't know if the offense came through as much as they would have hoped for. They were relying a lot on their goaltending, and when that fell apart, everything else kind of went with it. Buchnevich was great. Kyrou was good. Schenn, 5 assists. Perron, 4 goals in 6 games. Great. O'Reilly, Falk, tough defensively, but still put up 4 points. It was Robert Thomas. Yeah, he had a couple goals in 1 game, but aside from that, he was pretty invisible. -6. Tarasenko, 1 goal, 3 points. Saad with a goal. Barbashev, 1 assist in 6 games. That was a real backbreaker as well. You needed these guys to come through on top of everyone else coming through if you're going to have your goaltending be kind of non-existent and you need to rely on the offense, because the goaltending in Colorado is nothing too crazy. I've said this before. I'm not a huge believer in Darcy Kuemper. His goals saved above expected in the entire series was negative through and through. From game 2 to 3, it improved slightly, and from game 5 to 6, it improved slightly, but it was down, down, down pretty much the whole series. That's why the Avalanche, they are a beatable team in theory, but when their goaltending is not there, the scoring comes through. When the scoring dries up, Darcy Kuemper seems to turn it on. So they are a beatable team in theory, but the Blues didn't have everything come together as they would have needed it to beat them. Were Jordan Binnington healthy the entire series, that could have been a very different story. If 1.2 to 1.5 went up to 2 to 3 to 6, while Darcy Kuemper went down 2.2, 3.9, 5, and so on, we may be talking about a very different Western Conference final. Even defensively, the top 4 defensemen in the series were all on the Avalanche. The top 5 of 6, all on the Avalanche. These guys down here, like, okay, maybe Perunovich and Rosen aren't getting a lot of ice time, sure, but you need Parayko to be better than he was at a 2.6 when it comes to offense, zone entry. Even if you want to forget offense, fine. Zone entries, entry defense, and exits. Forget special teams, forget offense. Just look at these numbers here. Parayko, 0.2, -0.1, 0.3, in comparison to Cale Makar, who only scored 3 assists in the series, 1.3 in the zone entries, 0.7 on the entry defense, 1.7 on the exits. That's what has to be considered, because going back to the Avalanche here, it wasn't like they had an offensive explosion to win this series. Yes, Kadri, McKinnon, and Rantanen, blah, 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 like I'm saying. Makar, though, he had a 1.75 or 2 points a game in the first round, and now he only scores a point every other game in the second round. This was the opportunity you had to jump on as the Blues. He only got 3 assists, but everyone else supplements the scoring when one or the other dries up. That's a good Stanley Cup winning team, where one goes down, the other rises to take his place. A Hydra type of team. So I'll have to say it was a good series between the Blues and the Avalanche. A better series than most would have expected. I enjoyed watching it very much, but unfortunately didn't culminate in what it could have been due to that Binnington injury, and I think the Avalanche just started to take advantage from there. The defense from the Blues was the difference as well. Not just the goaltending, it was the defense with such low scores from all these guys. Justin Falk was number 1 on the team, and even that was only 0.5 above the Avalanche's worst. They played a lot of minutes, not a lot of minutes, like Perunovich playing 30.4 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time versus Falk and Parayko at like 130. Obviously, you're not going to be comparing them on the same scale, but just to say, it wasn't super pretty. And the forwards, I mentioned them as well. Kyrou, Perron, Buchnevich, great. And Tarasenko, even away from the puck, he did well, 4.9. It was Thomas and it was Barbashev who kind of had such big seasons and didn't come through in the playoffs. So for all the Blues fans out there, I'm sorry. They had a good team that could have beat the Avalanche. Just, I think it was the defense and the goaltending. I'm not going to say that Barbashev and Thomas not coming through makes the difference. I think that those were just a couple of symptoms to the larger problem, unfortunately. So that being said, I got that one correct. Avalanche in 6. Now we move on to the Flames and the Oilers. I thought the Oilers would take it in 7. Even though my original prediction were the Flames winning the cup, I said, no, I'm going back on it. Edmonton wins this in 7. They ended up winning it in 5. How about that for a series? Game 1 going to the Flames in a blowout, a barn burner at the Saddle Dome. 9-6, 15 goals scored. The Flames win it. But then the Oilers go ahead and win 4 straight by 2, by 3, by 2, and in overtime. All these wins being with 4 or 5 goals to get the dub. So very interesting series. We thought that it would be more offensive, but not as offensive as it was, because Jacob Markstrom, I thought, was going to be a bit more the difference maker. So getting to the numbers on this one, as we can see, expected goals for Avalanche again, Flames, despite scoring 9 goals, they only had 66% of the 5-on-5 expected goals for. Games 2, 3, 4, okay, it's all pretty even, but even game 2, Flames had the majority. Game 3, very close. It was game 4 and 5 where the Oilers started to pull away a little bit. So it's not just the goaltending, it was the expected goals for that the Oilers began to become the favorites in. And when we look at the goaltending here, we see, okay, games 1 and 2, goaltending is pretty even. They're allowing 3-4 goals cumulatively below what they would be expected to save. But then Mike Smith, from game 2 to game 3, saves almost 3 goals above expected, gets his numbers back up to negative 0.5, and stays around there. Game 5 allowing 1.5 more than he should have. It was Markstrom who was stuck at 3.9, 3.9 again, down to 4.3, and then in game 5 allowing 1.1 goals above expected, down to 5.4. After having such a crazy series against Dallas and Jake Oettinger, if it were not for Oettinger, Markstrom's numbers were in the 5, 6, 7s, while Oettinger was at like 13 or 11 or something like that. To go from all the way up here with like double this chart to be down at negative 5, Markstrom, it was definitely a game changer. Now, how much of that is the Connor McDavid factor? Here he is, number 1 in all of these stats. This is from a few days ago, so I'm not sure if any players have surpassed him in some of these categories. Some series have gone longer, but points, primary assists, passes, everything else, number 1, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th, and these other attributes as well. Thank you, all 3 zones, JFresh Hockey, Top Down Hockey. Very much appreciate these images, all taken from Twitter. It's a great follow. Make sure you're following them because it is super informative. And then getting into the micro game stat scores, so McDavid, Gaudreau, Draisaitl, all these guys, definitely that's what's expected. But the Flames did have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 6 players in this series when it came to these other things: offense, zone entries, forecheck, exits, and special teams. They had 4 of the top 6, and you have 3 of the bottom 4 are from the Oilers, Cassian, Archibald, Ryan. So it's top heavy for sure, but the Oilers are not a 2-player team. It's not what I'm trying to say. Evander Kane, goal per game. Zach Hyman, amazing. Looking just in that second round, Draisaitl with 17 points in 5 games. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense to you? 17 points in 5 games? Like if you're doing any fantasy playoffs pools, that's bonkers to me. McDavid, 12 and 5, gets overshadowed by the guy who got averaging 3 assists a game with 17 points. Like, does this not blow your mind? Like, have we become desensitized to this? The man scored 17 points in 5 games. Are you not entertained? So, but I'll have to say, they're not a 2-man team. They're a 2-man wrecking machine, but they're not a 2-man team. Hyman, 8 in 5. Evander Kane, 5 goals, 6 points in 5 games. Nuge, 6 in 5. Even Duncan Keith, in his with his walker, no offense, 4 points in 5 games. Evan Bouchard, 3 goals in 5 games. These other guys who've been struggling a little bit, Jesse Puljujarvi, even Tyson Barrie, who you'd expect a bit more offense from, nothing coming, doesn't matter. Draisaitl and McDavid, bang. Now the question will be, you thought that they were going to run into some issues against Jacob Markstrom. Not really. But now Draisaitl and McDavid going up against the Colorado Avalanche, I don't see Darcy Kemper being a huge issue for them. We'll get into that when we talk about the series itself later on, which I've already previewed, but I'll touch upon it in this video. Just all that to say that the Oilers are a crazy hockey team. Defensively, the Flames had it. The top 3D in this series were all from the Flames. it's only Evan Bouchard and Cody Ceci who are playing amazing, but they're their top 2D. It's not Nurse, it's not Keith, it's not even Tyson Barrie either. It's Bouchard and Ceci. Very big surprise, and I'm loving their hockey. Like, I'm watching them, and I'm looking at the stats, and it's adding up. I'm pretty sure Cody Ceci, over on JFresh, there are other great images over on JFresh. There's something about Cody Ceci that I saw over here. Yeah, zone entry denial rate. The man is number 1 in that second round. 22% zone entry denial rate. The opponent's zone entry attempts denied per entry. 22%. That's crazy in my opinion. Like, does this not shock you? Cody Ceci? Like, I feel like in my preseason data cast, I felt like I was saying, come on, Edmonton, what did you do with the defense this offseason? But there he is, Cody Ceci. So that'll be interesting. Now, over on the Flames in this series, Mike Smith was not unbeatable. You know, Gaudreau, 6 points in 5 games. Tkachuk, 3 goals, 4 points, not horrible. But that first line plus minus was Mangiapane, 4, Lindholm, Coleman, Backlund, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players, all a point below, 1 point below a point per game or 1 point above a point per game. It was Calle Jarnkrok trade deadline acquisition, didn't really come through that much. Chris Tanev being injured, only being able to play in 2 games, definitely had an impact as well. But I think it was just the Oilers dominating. There's only so much you can say before you just gotta like admit that this team was the better team. So the Flames, I'm not trying to say that they did horrible. I'm just trying to say that the goaltending fell apart a little bit. It wasn't as it should have been. And, you know, come on, the Oilers are getting like 5 goals a game. Even though they're expected for 2.7, they're getting 5. So is that because of Jacob Markstrom? That's the interesting thing now. They're scoring 2.2 goals above expected. Are these numbers inflated? Yes, they're inflated, but are they sustainable? That's the question. Are they sustainable? And I'm not saying for the next 82-game season. I'm saying for just a 7-game series against the Avalanche, it is conceivably possible. The Avalanche are still winning in shot attempts off of passes, in-zone shots, entries with chances, stuff like that. They're still leading all these categories. But the Oilers are not far behind. I do think the Avalanche take it. I think it's going to be a fantastic series, but I think it'll be close. I guess I'm kind of getting into a breakdown now of the Avalanche and the Oilers, which I'm not going to go much more into as I already did a whole video on this. But just to say, if Mike Smith can hover around this area while the offense of Edmonton continues to be just otherworldly, it is conceivable that the Oilers win this series. However, I think the Avalanche take it. Now, Darcy Kemper, if he also hovers around here, that's good. It's if he starts to drop into the 3s and the 4s, that is where the Oilers will capitalize. If the Avalanche are able to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl, maybe not even shut down, but just kind of contain them a little bit with their solid defending, which we have seen right here, Makar, Byram, Taze, Johnson, even Johnson and Manson, then that's definitely a series changer. So I think the West is definitely the series that I'm most interested in. The game 1's probably already begun as this video is uploaded. The series begins in like an hour for me as I'm recording this, so I cannot wait to see that. But all that to say, the Flames played well. I thought they were the most well-rounded team, but you take out Chris Tanev, you have struggles from Jacob Markstrom, the scoring dries up a little bit, and things change fast, and that is NHL hockey, baby. That's Dallas. So those are my thoughts on the Western Conference matchups there. Edmonton is just a wild beast that has been unleashed. The Avalanche are such a good team. Both won their series because of their own play, coupled with the struggles in different departments against the team that they played against, which is pretty much the case for any series, I would think. Speaking of teams that struggled, the Florida Panthers, President Trophy winners. Many people had the Panthers going to the Cup final, like at the minimum, at least the conference final, but definitely a Stanley Cup final, maybe a Stanley Cup championship. This team gets swept out of the conference semi-finals. Yes, it's by Tampa, 2-time Cup champions, everything, but they get swept. they get swept. Game 1, they lose by 3. Game 2, it's close. Game 3, they lose by 4. And Game 4, they get shut out. They only score 3 goals, the highest scoring team in the NHL. I guess it was unsustainable. A lot of people said it's unsustainable, and I guess it was in the end. They score 3 goals in 4 games. Verhaeghe, who had, at one point, his name was in the odds for the Conn Smythe, no points in 4 games. Huberdeau, 2 points in 4 was the best. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players with just 1 point. Only 1, 2, 3 goal scorers, like we said. Luostarinen, Reinhart, and Duclair. Just unbelievable. Alex Barkov getting 1 assist in 4 games? He's getting shut down. Now, looking at the numbers here, it's not like the Panthers weren't in it. Games 1 and 2, they had a good majority. In games 3, they're down a little bit. And in game 4, 51-49 split. The expected goals for, at least for 2 games, were in the Panthers' favor, with a coin toss in game 4 and a slight majority for the Lightning in game 3. This very easily, through 4 games, could have been a 3-1 Panthers series. Crazy. And then goal saved above expected. Bobrovsky was not bad. He was average to above average. In game 4, he saved 2.2 goals above expected. It was just that Vasilevsky going from 2.1 in game 1, then saving another 2.3 in game 2, another 2 in game 3, and then almost 4 goals saved above expected in game 4 to get the shutout for a total of 10.1 goals saved above expected. That is, once again, we're talking about otherworldly numbers. Igor's been amazing. Ottinger was crazy as well. But to see Vasilevsky doing that against Florida, you gotta give the man props. That's just wild. So, all that to say, the Lightning are a scary team because it's not like the Panthers just forgot how to play hockey. They were still putting in good efforts. The Lightning just absolutely shut them out, shut them down, and didn't let them play their game. So that is a scary prospect. I know the Lightning is going to be a good series. A lot of people think, some people are thinking, Rangers in 5, Rangers in 6. I think that no matter who wins this series, it's going to be a grindy 1-goal games that take it. My original prediction, I don't want to throw any spoilers, my original prediction would be Lightning in 5 or 6, but don't get me wrong, it's not Lightning in 5 or 6 that they're winning 5-1, 6-1 games against New York. I see almost every game being a coin toss, and then the Lightning, because they have the slight edge in some categories that we'll highlight soon, I see them winning 4 out of 6, for example, but always in very tight ways. So in this past round against the Panthers, Corey Perry, 3 goals, 4 points, point per game. Stamkos, point per game. Kucherov, 7 points in 4 games. Ross Colton, the depth is there. Pat Maroon is alive. Nick Paul's been good. I guess if anyone hasn't really been doing what people thought they would do, I guess it would be Hagel and Killorn, who went pointless through those 4 games. Even Anthony Cirelli only 1 assist, but hey, when your goalie's playing like that and you have your big guys coming through, you don't need to be offensive juggernauts. You just gotta play your game. You gotta play your role that your team requires, and that role evolves as the series goes on, right? So, that's the Lightning and the Panthers. It was a great series for the Lightning. They played good hockey. It wasn't your typical 4-game sweep. That was it should have been a tight series. It should have been a tight series. But the Lightning, in large part thanks to Vasilevsky, it's not like they got bailed out time and time again, but in large part due to Vasilevsky, were able to wrap this series up in 4 games. Now, they're off to the conference finals, and now they're facing the New York Rangers, who beat the Hurricanes. Probably one of the bigger underdog stories of the postseason so far, because I thought that the Hurricanes would take it in 6. I never doubted the Rangers in terms of their abilities. I just thought that, okay, Freddie Anderson might be coming back. D'Angelo's been really good. Aho, Svechnikov, they've been good. But the Rangers found a way to shut them down. The Hurricanes, they did not have a lot of guys come through. Svechnikov, 1 goal in 7 games. Nino Niederreiter, 1 goal in 7 games. Did not come through. Aho still 6 and 7, but Teravainen 4, Trocheck 3. Okay, 3 goals, led the series in goals for their team. but you got to rely on Brendan Smith to get some points. Seth Jarvis was injured in Game 7. Kotkaniemi, don't get me started, right? D'Angelo, only 2 assists for D'Angelo. If I look at the entire playoffs, D'Angelo had scored 8 points, right, in 7 games, right? 8 points in 7 games, then 2 points in the next 7 games after that. So, that's what I'm talking about here. The Hurricanes, although they had a good series, a lot of people didn't come through. And that's not because they didn't play good hockey. Again, look at these numbers. It's because, in large part, of Igor Shesterkin. So, Game 1, Game 2, slight majorities to the Rangers. Game 3, Game 4, back to the Hurricanes. Game 5, heavy for the Hurricanes. And then again, Game 6, 7, Hurricanes. So look at these numbers right here. Only 2 out of the 7 games were the Rangers the leader in 5-on-5 expected goals for. 2 out of 7, yet they win 4 out of 7. Even in Game 7, where they scored 6 goals, yes, an empty netter, say 5, they only had 47% of the expected goals for. You got to look at the chart right here. Igor Shesterkin saves 12.1 goals above expected through those 7 games. Going from game 1, 1.2 to game 2, another 1.5 to game 3. I think that's 5.4 on the blue. So almost 3 goals saved above expected in game 3. Then another 1.5, another 0.6, another 2.5, another like 2.5 there. So really, really shocking numbers. And that wasn't because, the Rangers played against a third-string goalie and a backup goalie. Well, not really. Antti Raanta was saving 4 goals above expected, 4.9 above expected. It was really only games 6 and 7 where we went down from 4.2 to 0.9 in the end, still ending in the positives. But it was really only Games 6 and 7 where the goaltending faltered a little bit for the Hurricanes, allowing 5 in Game 6 and again 5 in Game 7. Aside from that, the losing team in this series always had just 1 goal or got shut out, and the winning team won the game by 1, 2, 2, 3, 2, even Game 6, by 3. These were not runaway games. It was not a very offensive series. It's not like the losing team in like in the Edmonton 9-6 losing team has 6 goals. No, if you didn't score more than 2, you were probably losing because you were scoring 1 or 1 goal was not enough. I'm trying to say that's for sure. And Hurricanes in game 2, 2-0. That was a very big performance from the Hurricanes in game number 2. And then 1.7 goals above expected being saved there. But when there were some injury troubles, Freddie Anderson did not come back. That all factors in. Looking at the Hurricanes here, Raanta in the series, a .917 save percentage. But, Kochetkov, 5 goals against on 19 shots. He didn't play much. He played, pretty much a game, 60 minutes and 40 seconds. But that's the difference maker right there. A .792 save percentage. I feel bad for the guy. He had a good season and he played well in round 1 when called upon. But the Rangers broke through him. Raanta played very well. He played very well. 2.17 goals against average. It's just that in the end, those small things are what makes the difference. Now, looking at the New York Rangers, of course, in that series, Igor Shesterkin with a 1.72 goals against average and .949 save percentage. Overall, I think his goals against average is possibly at 2.8, I think it may be, but that's in total 2.68, 2.68. But regardless, we're looking at just the series, and he was lights out. It was for this split right here from games 5, 6, and 7. That split right here, this division of 3 became like 7, and then became like 11 or 12. Right? Yeah, come on, you got to give it to him. So now it becomes Igor versus Vasi in the Eastern Conference Finals, Lightning and Rangers. The Hurricanes, they had a lot of guys not come through. Do I see the Lightning having guys like Kucherov and Stamkos and Palat and even Point back from injury not come through? I don't know. It would have to be because of Igor shutting them down. I don't think they'll just kind of dry up after 9 days off and everything. I think they're rested. I think they're healthy. And I think they're as hungry as ever to get a 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup. So Igor, just to have a chance in the series, I believe that Igor has to stay as good as he's been, if not better, to try and win the series. I'm not saying anything against the Rangers whatsoever, because I felt that was a bit misconstrued in my series preview. I didn't mean to say that, okay, Lightning in 5 or 6 and the Rangers get steamrolled. No. I think it'll be a very good series. I just think that when you have the two really good goalies, I give it to the team that has a bit more scoring depth, maybe a bit more defensive depth. I see the Rangers having a bit more defensive depth. I see the Rangers as the Lightning as having a bit more scoring depth. And what I mean by scoring depth is that guys who are scoring who you wouldn't necessarily expect. The Rangers are getting more scoring throughout their lineup. As you see, guys, the top 5 are all between 11 and 19 points in 14 games. Meanwhile, the Lightning, their top 5 are between 8 and 15. Different for the games played, absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is look at some of these names. Paul, Perry, Colton, you're getting scoring from these guys who are playing 13 minutes a night, 11, 12 minutes a night. That's more what I'm trying to highlight. The scoring is coming from those guys as opposed to having to rely all of your scoring coming on the guys who are playing 20 plus minutes a night. That's the point I'm trying to get across. Now, Vetrano, Lafreniere, the kid line, they've been amazing. So I don't mean to say the Rangers don't have anyone beyond their first line or top 6. I'm just saying if it was the bottom 6s playing against each other, I think I give it to the Lightning. Meanwhile, on the Rangers, I've been loving Braden Schneider. I'm loving Ryan Lindgren, even K'Andre Miller. I think that defensively, I'm not thinking about points, I'm just thinking about defensive play. I know there's Fox, I know there's Hedman. I'm talking about depth. I'm talking about once you get to the second pair, the third pair, guys who are playing 12 minutes a night. I give that edge to the Rangers. You may disagree with me, but I think I'm trying to go off the stats as much as possible. And that's what I'm just kind of feeling. You know, when it comes to these videos, sometimes it's just kind of the eye test and what you're feeling. The eye test plus the stats equal the prediction. And that's what I'm saying right now from having watched pretty much almost every minute of every game of the playoffs so far. Those are my thoughts. Now, my predictions have not been perfect, but I do see it being Avalanche and Lightning in the Stanley Cup final. I think it's going to be a great series in the West. I think it's going to be a great series in the East. I think the West may be a bit more of the scoring battle, while the East might be a bit more of the goaltending battle, but time will tell, and it should be very exciting either way. Now, of course, I want to know what are your thoughts on all of that? What do you agree with, disagree with? As we're looking at the bracket here, if you want a quick update on the Data782 bracket, I'm pretty much out. I think I'll finish, where am I right now? I'm in 12th right now. How many people are in this bracket? 33. I'm in 12th of 33 right now. I can only get up to 163 points, but there are still some players in it, especially Dexter here at number 1 at the moment with 155 points. Dexter thinks that the Lightning take it against the Avalanche. My current prediction, that was his prediction through and through. He had the Rangers going to the Eastern Conference Final as well, so shout out to Dexter. Only team wrong was Edmonton over Calgary. Aside from that, 3 out of 4 in the 2 conference finals. So shout out to Dexter. Will he be able to hang on, or will there be someone else in the Data782 bracket league who takes it? That'll be very interesting to see. There are some, at least NHL 22 sim decide who's going to win. That bracket definitely has a chance as well, as that it would be also Avalanche versus Lightning, and also the top 4 predicted correctly. Okay, so maybe it comes down to the tiebreaker. But regardless, thank you for taking the time to listen. Be sure to leave a like if you are excited for the Western and Eastern Conference Finals. Leave your predictions down here in the YouTube comments, or come and discuss it further with us over in the Discord server, link in the description. As I said, what do you agree with, disagree with? I love having these discussions further in the comments. Sometimes I get called out, sometimes I get some praise. It's always a fun time down here on the channel. And that's why it would be a great time for you to subscribe, become a member of the team, join in on these discussions, become an assistant general manager in our NHL 22 franchise mode series. We're wrapping up the Kraken and starting our next series on franchise mode soon. We have our NHL 07 Dynasty, FIFA 22 career mode, and much, much more. So take a minute, check it out, and look out for the Stanley Cup final preview. Once the third round here wraps up, we'll look back on the series that were and look forward to the Stanley Cup final before a final postseason wrap-up video. So I love making these. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and engage with them. I appreciate that very much. So thank you once again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next one.